Good day, everyone. It's Meredith Leon McCormick for World Bride Magazine, and we are in the heat of things right now with conversation about diversity, inclusion, what that looks like, and racial tension is very high, and it is even higher and hotter in the fashion world and even worse in the bridal world. And we caught up with Christy, who is the owner of League of Her Own. And I saw this amazing text message that she had on Instagram. Well, I didn't see it. My creative director, Andrew Babb, saw it and said, check this out. This is amazing. You should try to do something surrounding it. And when we messaged Christy, and she immediately responded, didn't miss a beat. And we want to say thank you, first of all, for giving us the opportunity to talk to you and have this conversation. Yay!
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to opening up the conversation, and it's very needed right now, that's for sure.
Yeah, so please tell us your full name and the name of your company.
Yeah, so my name is Christy Baird, and my company is called Loho Bride, and it stands for League of Her Own. Just a little background on that. I felt like we had kind of discussed earlier, there was a huge gap in the market from the mainstream aesthetic. I didn't see myself represented in the market, nor did my friends. It wasn't interesting to me. And if I thought about ever getting married, because I kind of say I started it for women that didn't dream about getting married, and I was not married when I started it, I didn't see myself. I didn't see the vision. I didn't get excited when I saw bridal. I kind of was very turned off by it. And so I named it League of Her Own because I wanted my brides to feel like they were in their own league, that it wasn't predetermined for them. They weren't just going to fit into a box of, I'm a boho bride, I'm a this bride, I'm a that bride. It's like, you're your own bride. There's no rules. And we want to be there to support you. And we want to create a safe space for you to do whatever you want to do. And unfortunately, that wasn't really available when I was starting. I think it's evolved a little bit, and there has been.
When did you start? When did you start?
I started 6 years ago, but I've been in bridal for about 10 now.
Okay.
So, but the store started 6 years ago, and we have a location in San Francisco and Los Angeles. So we've been able to service, a lot of California, which has been great.
Okay, so were you in the fashion industry prior to starting the bridal?
I actually was doing vintage reconstruction in bridal before, and it was just a small little business that a girlfriend and I started from scratch. We were broke, we were just out of college, but I saw that gap happening, and I think we started seeing more weddings getting featured. More wedding blogs had just started coming out about 10 years ago. And I just kept thinking, God, this seriously is so not my, vibe. And these brands look so cookie cutter. And it just got me thinking, but obviously with no money, we were like, what can we do? How can we kind of break into this whole industry without any capital? And so our answer to that was vintage. So we mustered up some money, while still working day jobs, and we just started reconstructing those vintage gowns. And she still continues that brand. It's still a made to order brand. But I found through that business that I loved meeting the brides. I used to run little appointments out of my small studio in San Francisco.
Right.
And it was all about the connection for me. It wasn't necessarily about the designing. I realized I wanted it to be that in person. I wanted to feel that connection with a bride that felt comfortable, because you can see that switch happen. Once you see a bride get comfortable and she's really smiling and she's really feeling herself, like that to me is the magic of bridal. It's not just picking out these beautiful gowns. And, you know, there's that little glamour part of it, but it's such a small part of the business. It's really holding their hand and giving them an experience that they'll never forget, because it's something they're always going to talk about. They're always going to remember it. And if it doesn't go a certain way, it's devastating. So, so that's when I realized I really want to open a store. I want to meet these women. I want to get to know them. I want to create, like I said, this safe space and have their favorite music playing and already know about them from a questionnaire beforehand. And I wanted a tailored experience. I didn't want it to feel like another number was coming in and here's this blanket experience. I wanted each experience to feel like we already knew them and we were there to get to know them further, if that makes sense. So that's kind of, I think, what set us apart. And you think that that would be a very like standard thing, but it's not.
No, it's not.
It's really not. So, so yeah, that's kind of been our mission, is to just make women feel great and to not make them feel like they're just another number coming in.
That's amazing. So just to go backwards, what is your cultural background?
Oh, I'm a big mix. I'm actually half Japanese. I'm a quarter Syrian, and then I'm a quarter like English, Scottish, French, German. So I'm like a whole, but I grew up in the Bay Area, and you know, not to go too deep on that, but I grew up with a lot of diversity. I went to a high school with every type of culture, and I ended up going to college in a pretty white college, and I ended up transferring out because it was too much of a culture shock for me coming from the Bay Area. And so I ended up transferring to SF State, and I finished off there. Just because like I grew up in, I now realize, a little bit of a bubble in the Bay Area, and what I thought was the norm was not, even just a quick 2 hours away.
Wow.
So that was like a big eye-opening experience for me. And I think that has really affected even the way that we create the environment at Loho, because I want everybody that walks through the door to feel thought of and included. But there's still a lot of work to be done on that, obviously, you know? And so, you know, that can lead into more of what we talk about, but there's still a lot of work on how you can make every woman that walks through the door feel included.
Right, I agree. So what brought me to you, like I was mentioning, is my creative director and, you know, executive producer of anything that I do, Andrew Babb. He saw your quote and he found it very interesting. But being in the fashion industry for 30 years, I've always heard that, you know, and that's how World Bride magazine even got started, because I remember we saw the gap, but I was a manicurist at that point. So they, you know, you come in, you do the nails, the girls dry, you leave, and that's it. But as a woman, as a human being, when we're naturally inclined to want to see something that looks like us, and being on set after set after set and not seeing anyone that looked like me, or not even anybody that looked like you. Because we thought you had it worse either, because you guys, you know, other cultures tend to be a little bit more quiet about it, you know. So that's what I saw, you know. And so I would ask, when I got comfortable enough with the editors, I would ask them, hey, you know, do you ever use Black girls or anything? And they would be dismissive of it, you know. And they weren't mean to me, because those girls were amazing to me. And then when finally I asked one time too many, one of the girls said, why don't you start your own magazine, since you want to see so much color? And I was like,
awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even think I could do that, you know. And then I had to do the research and say, wow, I'm in the midst of it all. So I started going on set and taking notes, finding out how things would work and how things would operate. So that's, you know, like you and your story, I wanted to be a solution, not a problem. I wasn't there to compete. I wasn't there to disparage anybody, you know, for what they chose to do, because I didn't want them to come in my house and tell me what to do. So I just simply created a space that I felt comfortable with, people that I felt comfortable. And
those are the best ideas.
So, you know, we have similar stories in hearing your version and my version, seeing something. And I think that's what makes women such great business women, because we're not about to reinvent the wheel. We're just going to find another solution, go a different path. And result. So I think that's what it is. So when he saw that quote that you said, and I'm going to read it, the fashion industry can do better. The bridal industry can do better. We can do better. And I love that statement for several reasons. Number one, you were bold enough to even say it. Number two, you in the order of things, I felt you put it in place. The fashion being the leader of it all, because there was a point that the fashion people looked down on bridal completely. Like they weren't sending us the good girls at all. You're not getting the good girls. Nope. They don't do bridal. The bigger the girls are, they're not doing bridal at all. And then you held us accountable. And I took it two ways. One, you being a bridal designer store owner, boutique in charge of the money. So you're like two ends of it. One, you can give opportunity, and one, you will give business. So you're the best conduit for both worlds. So you probably have more power to make the change and being bold enough to say that. But you need allies like myself, the media, that will support this agenda and get it out so that people can start looking within internally to make these changes. And I started reading some of your posts, you know, the responses from people, and you were quick on it. You were just like, oh yeah, no, we're working on that.
They're good questions. They're really good questions, and they need to be addressed. And, you know, I went into this knowing that we weren't going to have everybody be a fan of what we were saying. But we all need to be bold enough to do it, because it is worse to just sit at home and say, oh, I think I can make some changes, but I'm scared to say something because what if I get backlash? Right. And that really defeats the purpose. Like, I'd rather get a little backlash and know that I'm making a change and know that something real is happening, and that and it's something that's consistent and it's not performative. That was my biggest thing when I really had to think about what we could do that was actually going to change, and what designers do we really align with. Like, this isn't just I'm going to align with a Black designer because it looks good right now. These are designers that we really, really love, that we, you know, put effort into, that are very much a brand match for us. Like, nobody would look at these designers that we've invested in, you know, through these partnerships and say, oh, that's not Loho. They are Loho, you know, and it's because we put in the work to do that. And so it was just important for me to not just do a 5% to, you know, which is, again, any effort is good effort right now. But I think for me, it needed to get more personal. It needed to be something that actually is changing within my business. Right. And that's going to be there for a long time. And it's going to be intertwined with our business forever. And I really urge other businesses to look at it that way, and to not just think, oh, we got to respond, we got to do something because everybody's doing something. It's like, what do you have influence on? And for me, which is a hard thing to say because I don't think of myself this way, but I knew that we have an influence in the bridal industry. I know that a lot of bridal industry people watch what we're doing. And so,
especially Harper's Bazaar, because aren't you their darling?
Yeah. I mean, and so that you have to kind of use what you have and what you can control to really make an impact. And so for me, it was like, we do have an influence on the bridal industry. And if I say something, or, you know, most recently, the nude is not one shade.
Oh my God, my favorite.
Thank you. But when I say I don't want to buy a gown that doesn't have nude options, that is going to hit home with my designers. Right. And I need to understand that I do have that power, and I need to use it, because just sitting at home and saying, oh yeah, that's true, or I did see that go down, or whatever, it's not enough anymore, you know, and it hasn't been for a long time. And, you know, that's something I've had to put myself in check, and like, you know, why didn't I press on this more? You know, I mentioned on one of those comments, I don't reach out to brides to send me photos. I kind of waited for them to just send them to me, because it is a personal thing. So it's a little tricky to be like, I need your photos. But I didn't just at least reach out and say, hey, if you're comfortable, I would love to show more diversity on our real brides, because we do work with a lot of diverse brides, but unfortunately we tend to not always get the best mix. Like, can you help us out with that? Or is that something you're comfortable with? I never did that. Right. So, you know, of a lot of these things that you can just see that one little message or one little thing can really start to make an impact on what's being seen, from the outside in.
Yeah, I agree.
And also how your brides feel coming to you,
You're absolutely right. You answered my first question and you answered my third question.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, you did perfect. Second question to you is, when did you realize that there was a lack of diversity and the industry was divided into two corners?
I mean, really from the first bridal market, I remember going to, because I didn't know what I was doing, and I remember going to the like big market where all the booths are set up and everything. And you just see it straight up in models. You're just like, whoa, like this is a bunch of cookie cutter, pretty much white models, or they might have like a token Asian or Black girl in there just for like almost good measure. But it was very, very, very white and blonde, and the sweetheart it was just very generic. And that's when I realized too, my niche was, I'm going to find these hard to find designers that are independent, that, probably are going to find a way to show me their collection without having to come to this type of market. And so truly, after that, I think maybe the first or second market I went to, I never went back. Like
Really?
I ended up meeting my designers individually, because they were showing in hotel rooms. They were showing in, they didn't have these big budgets to do major shows or anything. So, and honestly, it's kind of, there's good things about that, because I feel like I've found this niche and I've aligned with designers that I really feel passionately about. But I almost kind of removed myself from the big market because it bothered me. And instead of kind of addressing it, I just took myself out of the equation. Do you know what I mean? Like I just didn't go to those big booths, and I just stopped doing that, and I just aligned with who I wanted to align with.
Right.
And I don't know, you could see that as a good or a bad thing. It's like I created my own bridal world in a lot of ways.
Right.
And I think maybe it just overwhelmed me less, and I chose that option.
That's key. And I think that's what happens is, it's such a big fight, a big battle to take on when you think you're alone. And we're taught in this community that we all don't even speak to each other because we're competing in one way or another. One media outlet is competing with the other media outlet for the same ad dollar of this one. You're trying to get the best dresses for your bridal store so that the girl could come to your store next to this one. So it becomes this whole thing that you are like, you know what, I just need to run my business.
Yeah.
And then it becomes this big problem that now, I think with the Black Lives Matter, it just busted on all levels across the globe. And now we started to see the weakness in the market, in our world. And I think, and don't forget, we're in a pandemic on top of another pandemic. We're dealing with COVID. We're dealing with shutdown of business, the economy. It's been 3 months now, 3 months.
Yeah.
It's got to do something to small business, women in business, and so on. And then, people are, the elections, there's just so much happening all across the board that you're like, wait a minute, I just need to step for a minute. I just need to pay the rent. I need to keep the lights on. How do I keep the business? And minority small business.
Baby.
Oh, yes, and you with the baby.
Yeah. It's been a lot. But you know what? It's funny, like even our window got hit or whatever, throughout this whole thing, and people are like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Like, how do you feel being a mother right now? And I'm like, you know what? It's obviously been a lot, but I feel really proud to be a mother right now, because I can show my daughter that we are fighting for a better world for her. And it's actually pushed me even more to say, how can I keep showing the right example and I even think of mothering my staff, like how can I show our staff that like we are going to respond and we're going to keep looking at ourselves and, setting an example, and not just follow along these little side things. Like how can we step ahead and say, this is what we stand for, and everybody needs to, follow along. like, or we're not going to, you know, work with you. Honestly. I mean, at this point, money talks. And I think a lot of businesses need to think about where they're putting their money right now. And they need to make sure that the brands are really in line with where you're headed. That's super important for me right now.
So what messages do you want to send out to, one, your bridal designers that you're looking to shop with? I know you mentioned earlier that all nudes are not for everybody. One nude is not for everyone. So you put that in place. What else do you have in place to hold the designers accountable, the publications accountable?
Mm-hmm.
What are your some steps?
Yeah, so the biggest one would be the nude thing has got to go. Like it's become such a trend too that you can't escape it every time you go and see presentations. But I have girls that it's completely rocked their appointment because they're like, but this doesn't. And so we've almost had to go out of our way to have our seamstress try to almost build in a custom liner because there's no option through the designer. And I get that it's a production issue, but it needs to be addressed. Like this, you know, we can't just say it's tough anymore. Like we have to really do the work. And that is a huge one for me because the nude is just it's gotten more and more and more popular. Like the more naked, the better, or whatever. But like, there needs to be options for it then. If you want to bring that into the market, then you need to provide an option. If not, take it out of your lineup. Don't do it then. You know, like if you're making that much money off of it, you should be able to create the options.
Right.
So I think that's a huge topic for me. And it's something I felt we already were kind of talking to designers about it months ago. And so now it just felt like even more the right time to say, you know, let's really have a call to action to the entire bridal industry.
Right.
And it really stems to buyers. If buyers keep buying it and selling a bunch of it, then no one's going to change. The buyers have to say, I'm not going to buy this season unless you make a change for me.
Right.
You know, so, and then that goes to the undergarments as well. And again, someone from the outside in might think that that's not that big of a deal, but it really is. Like it completely changes how a bride feels and how she feels that she'll be comfortable on her wedding day. And when you just see something not match your skin color, it's like, you know, you're like perplexed. You're like, well, why not? Like, why would I wear that? You know, it's not representative of me, and your gown is so representative of you.
Right.
You know, when it comes to like our designers on top of what I just mentioned, yeah, I think just making sure that they're showing a vision of a lot of different brides and not just one. You know, like Israeli designers tend to shoot Israeli brides.
Right.
Like it's very like French designers, they tend to shoot French brides. Like, and it's very like, looks like that type of bridal, but they need to really open up the door and say, you know, we want all types of brides. We want a diverse clientele. We don't just want French brides to have French brides, you know what I mean?
Right.
And some of them have been really great in doing that. I'm not trying to call out, you know, a certain type of designer. It's just, it's not there at all. So I think that's huge. And I think publications should look into that before they present these designers in their magazines or anything. I think they should say this lookbook is not inclusive, and like we are looking to show that more, rethink it, you know?
Yeah, and I agree with you. It takes us collectively, because now it's almost like what comes first, the chicken or the egg? So yeah. Is the magazine also, or the media also liable for the vision and the images that people see? Because if you continually have the same color model, the same ethnic model there, and that's all they see, then what do you expect? So now, even when we're working with new designers, Black designers, Asian designers, every single one of them has a blonde or a white skin model and no other ethnicity, not even their own.
Yeah.
So it's this other issue is like, wait a minute, you come from this region, you're not even celebrating it.
Mm-hmm.
You've left everything behind to fit into this cookie cutter market, even though you know that you know, psychologically, when a bride or a consumer sees somebody that looks like them, and they're going to be excited to celebrate it and want to support you, but you are not giving back that support by saying, hey, I see you. Look, look, that's you here. You know, I think that's where I personally took World Bride magazine, and it was so important. Even when, you know, we were casting for models for covers, and every issue, you know, the modeling agency would send us cards for the models. Oh, hey, I'd like to recommend this. They all look the same. To the point that I literally had to say, I'm sorry, we are an international multicultural magazine. You need to mix it up. I cannot continue to only show white, blonde, blue-eyed model. It's not fair to say World Bride, because there's a mix of other people that's there. Where are your Asian models? Where are your Black models? Where are your Latina models? Where are your Indians? They're even less.
I know.
And yet they get
I was
married.
thinking about that this morning, about how we've never shot an Indian model before. Like, we've shot every race, and we have not shot an Indian model. I literally, it's interesting you say that. I had that thought this morning. I was like, oh, you know, that would be really amazing to find an Indian model, like, next time around. I mean, there's just, it's being held accountable at this point. And there's this formula that's been created for bridal. And they're like, oh, if I get this, and if I do this look and whatever, it equals dollar signs. And I think that we need to really take a step back. And, you know, I feel like I've been trying to fight the mainstream, like, industry since I started. That's kind of been my mission. But I think that all those stores that are making a ton of money, that are just literally, you know, you look at every single designer they carry, and it's that same formula.
Right.
I think they really need to take a step back and say, what is this doing? Like, I'm just kind of feeding this, this generic feeling of bridal, and what, like, is that really what I want to stand for? Right. Is that really where bridal should be going?
Right.
Like, bridal is still so stuck, and like, it's like, the fashion industry has done a lot, and bridal is still just, to me, it just feels like 20 years behind sometimes, you know?
I agree with you.
It's like archaic in a lot of ways. And these tradition, like, there's like this tradition and this thing around it, but that's not what women want anymore. There's a lot of women that they don't want to follow these, like, you know, kind of cheesy rules on their wedding. Like, they want to break the mold. And, you know, thankfully blogs and social media has been able to, I think, give women the courage to be different.
I agree.
But it still starts with the buyers and what's even available for them to create this different vision. And there's just not enough of them. That's the truth. They're still buying in this old way.
And I think it's because they think that that's what the girl wants. And they think that's what the girl wants because the magazines have put that girl there. And I remember when I used to own a bridal salon years ago, and I asked one, I was buying veils from this manufacturer, and I asked him, hey, in all your booklets, you don't have any Black women, you have no Asian women. He's like, if I put a Black woman in one of my lookbooks, I would lose so many customers. He literally said that to me. And to me, and that was 15 years ago. So this is the kind of thing that the dollar supersedes the need for change. So people just play it safe, you know? And so I think it's at this point, you know, trying not to be political, but he's the only analogy that I can use is Kaepernick. He risked his whole career, you know, to make a statement, knowing that he was going to get backlash, you know, possibly lose his career. But, you know, it is what it is at this point. Now we have to be reflective and, you know, what role did I play in that? You know, what did I do? What can I do to adjust the magazines to show? And I had to, you know, I'm constantly being asked questions too. It's like, do you guys do this? Do you guys do that? Do you guys do this? And I have to go back to my team. I'm like, well, if you guys think we should be doing this, let's go, you know? So it's the willingness and to putting your team involved, you know, getting your team involved just to make the change and allowing them a seat at the table, but not a seat at the table and be quiet and do what you tell them. A seat at the table that's going to challenge you in making these changes. And I think that's why millennials today, they're not taking it. They're not having it. They're like, we want change, and if you don't, we're not supporting you. We don't care how big your brand is, which I find courageous. You know,
it's amazing. Yeah, and this has actually been a really incredible time for our team. Obviously, we've had to deal with COVID. We're doing virtual appointments, and we've had to kind of get creative on how we're going to survive through all this. And my team's done an incredible job, but nothing has been like the discussions we've had about Black Lives Matter and how Loho can do better and how we can push the industry. And those have been the most just like bonding and like creative conversations that we've had, and like emotional, and you know, them thinking of instances where it played a part in an appointment, and we just had very raw conversation about it, and it was so good. Like, I remember one of my stylists wrote me and was like, I am just so proud to work for a company that wants to have these conversations and that is actually doing something. And I feel really proud to be part of this team that like, that this is like, we literally, since the whole protests have started in our backyard, basically right in front of our store, we've been talking about it every day. We've been showing each other posts. We've been sending each other information, and like, that's what teams need to be doing right now. You know, that's what friends need to be doing, family need to be doing. Like, we all just need to keep, and for me, it's like, I always keep telling my team, like, I want all of us to be holding each other accountable, that we continue to do the work, and that this isn't just a moment in time. Like, and so, like, I like that quote, like, this isn't a moment, it's a movement, and we have to keep moving. We have to keep doing things. And you know, I did kind of come to the conclusion that a lot of it's going to come down to how we buy this year. It really is.
I mean, the designers are going to be held accountable. The ball is in their court at this point.
I was just going to say, the ball is in their court, and that's kind of what I wanted to achieve through these recent posts, is like, you know, I know you're seeing this, you're my designer, and I want to see something different when I see you in October. I want to see that you've listened and that you understand the importance of this. So I'm looking forward, because, you know, October is far enough away that there can be changes made.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing is, you know, for the Black brides that have been excluded for so long and have had to settle for society's standard of beauty and norm, they feel heard now. You know, they feel heard, they feel included, they feel like somebody sees them. You know, any woman that wants to come, you know, into your bridal shop, what message do you have for them regarding your vision for the future for bridal?
Yeah, I think in general, we've always had a really safe space for all brides to come in. I think the message I would want to tell them is, as they are choosing where to go, to really make sure that that store is going to be advocating for them and is going to keep pushing for inclusivity. And again, I think even it goes back to the brides of who they're supporting and who, you know, are they going to put their foot down and maybe not get some amazing gown because they don't think the designer or the store is supporting them. And so I think at all levels, we have to be holding that accountability. And it's okay for a bride to write in and say, hey, like, what are you doing to, you know, ensure that I'm going to have that safe space? Like, what, you know, almost what assurance do I have? Like, because honestly, that's not guaranteed for a lot of women right now when they go around to bridal shops. And I think it's totally fair for them to write into the store and ask them where they stand and what they're doing right now, and what they're going to continue to do. And almost having the guts to not go if you don't feel that they're representing you. I think there needs to be business lost if people aren't moving forward, like, end of story, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you.
So I think it actually, the stores need to be doing the work, but, and also I think the brides need to be able to say, I'm not giving my dollar to you
Right.
because you're not helping, you know, making me feel included and thought of. And so I think there's a lot of different layers to that, you know?
Okay, I love that answer. It's actual, you know, I believe in that wholeheartedly. You know, why keep forcing people that don't want your business?
Yeah.
Why are you forcing
And
them to
that's
take
why I don't mind the questions. Like, I
that?
don't mind somebody you know, DMing me, especially if it's in a polite way. And, you know, I've been really, really overwhelmed with just happiness that, like, when we have made, you know, statements or really strong stands on stuff, that people, if they did have questions, were very respectful about it.
Right.
And it wasn't this like attacking or, you know,
Right.
um, and they're really good questions. And they're, again, things that we can do better on and, you know, we're thinking of. And if it's something we're not thinking of, we want to be thinking of them. So I think this is the time more than ever for brides to be speaking up, for
Right.
brides to really, you know, I know there haven't been a lot of options all the time for certain brides, but like they need to speak up and tell these stores that aren't representing them or aren't showing
Exactly.
them that they don't want to shop there unless they start doing it.
What is that saying? The power's in the purse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Use it, you know? So my very, very last question.
Hmm.
So do you really believe and think that some people say that representation doesn't matter? They don't need to put a Black and Asian, Indian, or anybody in their ad because the girls will come anyway. Do you think representation matters?
I mean, yes, of course, I think it matters. I think that there are people in the industry that, like I said, they go to the formula. They know what works. They know what gets them money, and they're too ignorant to like understand what that mentally does to brides. Like
Mhm.
it's really, it kind of boils down to like almost like mental abuse. Like they have to keep being okay with the fact that they don't see themselves in the magazines and they don't see themselves in the ads and through the Instagrams and stuff.
Right.
And then they still expect them to walk through the door and just be cool about it and like, you know, still buy a gown from them. It's not okay, but they're okay just like continuing to run this like kind of mill of a business. So I mean, yes, I think people know exactly what they're doing when they just stick to the formula,
Yeah.
and I think that's who needs to be called out right now.
I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You're
Thank
taking
you.
a bold stand for just equality for all consumers and anybody that has a purse and a dollar in it, you know. Um,
Yeah.
we have power, and then you're taking accountability as a store owner. I have to take accountability as the media and who I highlight, and just not highlight the people that are the most popular, but I know that they're not catering to people of color at all. So I have to
Mhm.
look through my pages and say, okay, we're not working with them, we're not working with them, we're not working with them, and giving newcomers the opportunity. So thank you so much for that in the conversation.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you. I really appreciate it. And I just have to say, like, I'm really, really looking forward to this next bridal market
yeah,
in October, if we can have it. But I think hopefully by then we will. And I really, really hope that designers and buyers are listening and that there's going to be a huge shift that happens, and a permanent shift,
right.
not just a
Temporary.
onesie, like, oh, this was the year that we do it. It needs to
Right.
be a permanent shift. And yeah, I'm really, really I have really high hopes for it.
Yeah. Can you please give us all your social media handle and your websites and so on?
Yeah, we're at Loho, LOHO _ bride, and then we're just lohobride.com.
Okay, perfect. And so I will make sure that I put everything down here, folks, for them to do, to reach out
Aw,
to you. And your
thank
store
you.
hours, your website is beautiful. Your Instagram is even more beautiful. Um,
Oh, thank you. You're
so
so sweet.
No, it's the truth. You know, when people go to it, they'll see what I'm talking about. So thank you so much for this opportunity
Thank
to have this
you.
conversation.
It was so nice to meet you virtually.
I know, I can't wait to come out to California and meet you and your
Yes, and
family.
I'm in New York.
Oh, please. So you're going to be here probably sooner before I am if market happens, So
If market happens, but yes, I would love to meet in person then,
yes,
and continue the conversation because it needs to keep going.
definitely. And please, anytime you need some support and getting the word out there with your, you know, what you're doing, I think we need to support you on this matter because it's very important.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
All right, darling. Take care and go hug
Thank
the baby and the dog.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Guys, thank you so much. That was Christy. Please support Loho Bridal. Please. She's amazing. Her energy, you heard it straight from her mouth. And I would advise that we all look into it and stop giving people our money that do not want our business. So until the next time, ciao bella. Bye.
Bye.